And, the interesting thing about boundaries is being kind and being clear. Jay Shetty says this. I listened to a podcast with him and he's like, boundaries have to be kind and they have to be clear. And the beautiful thing about boundaries is that you can communicate what it is that you expect, what it is that you're seeking. And, being soft and tender with your words, I would say is pretty important on the onset, saying, this is what I'm seeking, right? This is what I need. And, when you start to establish boundaries, I will never forget the day that Joan said this to me. She's like, people will be mad. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm saying, hey, this is what works for me. This is what I need. Here are my desires. She's like, people are going to be mad. And the interesting piece about boundaries is that people who don't have boundaries, most of the time will get offended when you set those boundaries in place. But that's okay. That's okay, because the boundaries are set for yourself. And it isn't always easy, and people will cross your boundaries, and then you get to choose. You get to choose if you're willing and you're able to step over your own boundary that you've created. But boundaries, you go back to the mind reading, you have to be able to clearly articulate what the boundaries are. And one of the books that I read as I started to work within the home that she recommended was called Parenting with Love and Logic. The same concept, the absolute same concept. And so why it's applicable in our adult life, and then also, within any setting, is being able to say, this is what I expect, and here's the consequence. And so we as adults don't necessarily say, if you do this, this will happen. We can do that. And I do think it's healthy to establish, depending on the verbiage and how you might, sort of, again, wrap that up more tenderly. But it's boundaries with your children and saying ahead of time. So that's the key. It's ahead of time, because when you don't establish a boundary at the onset and say, this is what I expect, and instead you provide what you think is a consequence, it's not effective. You have to establish those things in the upfront, because then that person or that child has an opportunity to choose. Do I want to make a good choice or a bad choice? And guess what? That power of choice is on them. So you can sit back freely and peacefully and say, all right, they knew, I told them, now it's on them.